Hello everyone, and welcome to this weather impact alert stream on this Thursday, September 25th, a weather impact alert day due to high fire danger in the region. So it's obviously felt like the summer season all this week, this final full week of September, and this is just another pattern that really solidifies that fact that it really feels like we're still in the midst of this unending summer. So we have red flag warnings and high fire danger today, which has prompted our weather impact alert day. So fire danger because of the dry and windy weather conditions that are expected and will increase in intensity for the rest of today. It really has been calm so far this morning, but the storm system not quite yet on our doorsteps. But we start with this. Red flag warnings having been issued in preparation for this particular weather event through all of central and eastern Washington. Of course, when it comes to red flag warnings, we tend to look at the wind speeds. This is kind of moderate in terms of the wind strength overall at 20 to 30 miles per hour, but coupled with the extremely dry conditions and knowing that the fire fuels have been all dried out, from the fine fuels like the grasses to the heavy timber and wooded areas of our mountains and forests. Everything is absolutely bone dry. So this is definitely a day to be cautious and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to mitigate fires before they even start in the first place. Critical fire danger conditions. That is synonymous with our red flag warnings. The issuance here is from 1 to 11 p.m. That's when our winds will start to accelerate in the early afternoon, but are probably strongest near the tail end of that particular time range. It'll be like 5 to 7 p.m. for central Washington, really close to 9 to 11 p.m. for Spokane and eastern Washington. So again, a very late event, especially in terms of that particular time frame. What you need to know, and of course, say this every time we have high fire danger days, is to respect burn bans. Avoid any kind of outdoor burning, including campfires and bonfires. Most of those are outlawed through the summer season anyways, but it's just all that much more important on a day like today. So we'll take you to our satellite radar combination here. We won't see much in the way of rainfall. This is why this is feeling very much like a summer storm system. We get a cold front, but it's going to offer very little to almost no rainfall, instead just all wind with this particular front. Large storm system coming out of the North Pacific. It's actually already past its peak in terms of strength, intensity, and maturity. The low pressure area that's anchoring it, actually a bit detached from the cold front, which is now just kind of whisking off eastward into British Columbia right now. It's kind of square over Vancouver Isle, and the frontal system is just off of the Washington coast as of 11 a.m. on this Thursday morning. As this slices through the Pacific Northwest, it's just going to bring all of its wind energy with it. What usually happens is right as that cold front passes, we'll notice a sharp increase in terms of the wind speeds at first, and then it will stay decently intense behind it. That's why I actually analyze the wind speeds as a bit stronger behind the cold front as opposed to in front of it. But we'll notice just a little increase right as the cold front itself passes through. But think about this. This is 11 a.m. right now, and it should easily clear Spokane by 11 p.m. tonight. So it's going to cross the state of Washington in the next 12 hours, which is a pretty fast passage for this storm system overall. Hence the wind energy, of course, which is really helping to move it along in the first place. So let's cover what areas in Washington state are going to experience the strongest wind speeds overall. And for that, it's the areas shaded in red. So this is central Washington, Wenatchee, Chelan, Ellensburg, Yakima, even out towards Vantage, especially if you know that when you cross the river along that bridge, the winds can be pretty strong, especially coming right off of the water. That will be the case as well. I think this extends also into Grant County. So areas like Grand Coulee and Moses Lake are likely to experience wind speeds in this 20 to 30 mile per hour range during the late afternoon hours. Thinking about 5 to 7 p.m. would be approximately the time of those strongest wind speeds. Meanwhile, in Spokane, we don't have the red shades over Spokane County or really over Whitman County as well in the Palouse. I think we're on the lower end of that range, 15 to 25 miles per hour, especially by the time this cold front actually passes by Spokane at about 9, 10, 11 o'clock tonight. At that point, it's losing a little bit of its steam and a little bit of its strength, so the wind speeds aren't quite at those maximums. 15 to 25 miles per hour is certainly on the marginal end to even issue red flag warnings in the first place. But remember, we are so bone dry that it doesn't take much. When it comes to fire danger conditions, that just means any active or new wildfires would burn very aggressively. So that's what we're trying to really avoid for the inland Northwest. Here will be a more detailed hour-by-hour look at this cold front passage. So let's advance this feature tracker forward to 6 p.m. this evening. So about 6-7 hours from now. This modeling that I'm using is going to show a little bit of light rain, but it usually is a bit too aggressive. So if it shows the minimum amount of rain at its most aggressive approach, that does not bode well for any rain chances at all. In fact, I actually left them out of the forecast in Spokane altogether. This is really just some cloud cover, but it helped me to kind of delineate where that cold front is exactly going to be as it crosses through. So you saw it over the Cascades at about like 6 p.m. this evening. Here's 10 p.m. Again, just getting into eastern Washington. A very late arrival of this cold front actually means a couple things here. And this was the key detail that both myself and our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Legou, actually argued over in terms of like why that red flag warning would or would not be issued in the first place. At this hour, it's not going to be as hot anymore. That's 10 o'clock at night. I think the temperature will be a bit closer to like 60 degrees, 62. When it's not that hot, it tends to be our humidities actually increase. The percentage, the relative humidity goes up when the temperature goes down. If it's not going to be quite as dry at night, I didn't think that we were going to get that red flag warning initially. Nonetheless, I think it's just the dry ground, the dry fuels, that's a bit more concerning in this case. So we do have that red flag warning issued, again, for most of eastern Washington as well, even though this is about as late as it could get in terms of a cold front passage. So I don't think it's the most severe of our red flag warnings, but it was still, again, dry enough to issue it in the first place. Now we get to about 2 o'clock in the morning. This is Friday morning. Cold front has already cleared the inland Northwest. Look at how clear the skies get as well. Again, this is a very dry, windy cold front passage, which feels just very typical for a summer storm system, and hence our red flag warnings. I had mentioned the fuels. So this is our drought situation, and this map actually does update on Thursdays with data that goes through Tuesday. It actually takes a couple days to analyze a week's worth of data. It comes as no surprise that the entire Pacific Northwest has been incredibly dry this summer. This just really categorizes how dry it has been. The entire state is experiencing, at minimum, a moderate drought. This is the first category of drought. We go from dry to drought. Then it's moderate, severe, extreme, and exceptional. We call that D1, D2, D3, and D4, each more severe than the category before it. For Spokane and Whitman counties here, notice the red shades. That's an extreme drought. And actually, if you look kind of over my chicken wing elbow here, most of North Idaho is actually in the exceptional drought category, the most severe, that highest category of drought. We're running such a rain deficit that everything is so bone dry that it's just like tinder fuel at this point. So it's a little bit more concerning that we are this dry with any kind of wind, as opposed to earlier in the summer season where it would take more wind for us to be more concerned. But it is, again, so dry that even our marginal wind speeds means that this is a bit concerning. So the key here is to stop fires before they get started in the first place. So that's our latest update on the drought monitor. When it comes to, respecting burn bans and mitigating that fire danger, it's a lot of very simple things. It's things that most of us are probably doing since the start of the summer season, but it always bears repeating, just in case. Follow and respect those burn bans. No debris burns. That's actually been the cause of some of our fires through the summer season, which seems absolutely incredible to me that anyone would decide to do any outdoor burning on a day where it's too windy. Just feels completely idiotic. Don't throw out cigarette butts into the dry grass. That can oftentimes be a spark. Don't park on dry grass. I just mentioned a lot of that grass is just at its absolute driest, so you don't want the heat from the engine or the tires or really the metal parts of the frame of your car in contact with any of that grass. And secure loose tow chains, so that way they're not dragging behind you going down the interstate, because again, anything that's a spark could become a wildfire. We want to prevent that as much as possible. It is vital on days where we have red flag warnings. Now, since this is a cold front, we are expecting a big cool down temperature-wise. Today, it's just another summer day out there. Yes, it's been cool in the morning thanks to our 12 hours of nighttime, but that sunshine and our weather pattern has been heating us up really as best as it can every single day this week. Today, no exception, 81 degrees, the forecast high out of Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. It'll either be upper 70s or low 80s. Definitely one of our hottest days here. And another weather pattern that really solidifies that this is a high fire danger day, it's the last day of our heat wave. How often has that resulted in the highest winds and the highest fire danger? Today was no exception either. But here's the high temperatures tomorrow, a bit closer to 70 degrees. So almost a 10-degree drop temperature-wise from today to tomorrow. That is the strength of the cold front we're working with. But it's just all being used in the form of wind gusts and none of it in the form of any rainfall, unfortunately. But tomorrow's going to be more temperate for the fall season. Again, high temperatures of 70 degrees actually would put us basically right at the seasonal average for late September. Not below it, just at the average. One other thing to cover here, and then we'll give you a peek at the weekend, is any smoke, dust, or haze in the sky could very well be visible for today. Because of the system coming through, the winds are going to shift out of the west. And there's a couple wildfires that we're watching over the Cascades that would, take advantage of the higher wind speeds and thus burn more aggressively. Like I said, any active or new wildfires would burn more aggressively. In this case, it is the active fires that are likely going to pour out a lot more smoke into the atmosphere once those wind speeds really start to peak across the Cascades. So it'll happen a little bit later this evening. This is about 6 p.m. Again, that cold front just passing through the Cascades in central Washington, and the smoke is likely going to start pouring out of these fires as they start burning more aggressively. So that means it will be heading in our direction. I think mostly it'll just be a hazy sky, and we might not even notice it all that much if it's hazy and cloudy at the same time. I don't think we'll see big air quality drops in eastern Washington. I don't think it's quite enough for that, but the winds could also pick up some stray dust and dirt out of central Washington, so blowing dust is a minor concern and possible impact for areas of Grant Adams and Lincoln County. We get into the late evening. This is about 1 o'clock in the morning here. Again, all that smoke continues off eastward. Hopefully the fires will calm down at that point. So as long as it's not a continuous or lingering issue, I don't think we'll see huge air quality drops across the inland northwest. That being said, areas in Douglas, Chelan, and Okanogan County do remain under an air quality alert. That's mainly for the Labor Mountain fire. This has been the most aggressive fire in the Cascade. The Lower Sugarloaf fire is also part of that consideration. Our modeling actually puts the Wildcat fire as kind of the second most aggressive out of these three. A lot of that smoke has lingered around the valleys of Wenatchee, Chelan, and Omak recently. This last week, because of a gentle easterly wind, a lot of that smoke was going closer towards Seattle and Everett, but now that the winds are shifting direction, we might notice a little bit of an air quality drop or just overall hazy skies, but we're not under air quality alerts, so I don't think it's going to be a major issue in terms of Spokane. Whew, that was a lot to cover with one summer storm system that offers no rainfall whatsoever. It's all these little impacts that I like to give you a detailed look, especially on these KREM 2 Plus live streams here where we don't have a time limit for you. So how about we just move ahead and just look at the weekend's forecast in case you're curious about that. Check it out, it's going to be warm again. Remember, we're going to lose about 10 to 12 degrees between today and tomorrow, and then we gain it right back over the course of this weekend. So if you thought summer was through, You thought wrong, because this weekend's going to feel summer-like again. I will say, again, because it's fall, we get 12 hours a night, and that's more than enough time to actually cool us off a whole lot. So the low temperatures are probably still 40s or 50s for this weekend, but 81 degrees is about 12 degrees above average. So the summer weather absolutely continues for about 3 or 4 more days. I think today, Saturday, and Sunday will feel summer-like. Tomorrow and next week will feel a bit more like fall. So again, we're under a weather impact alert day due to red flag warnings today, the heightened winds and the heightened fire danger. If you're hoping for fall weather, keep your fingers crossed for some better rain chances. Tuesday honestly stands out as possibly that next best chance. But we'll be covering that and that next weather pattern kind of on a later date, because today's impact, today's focus has been completely on the fire danger. So just one more reiteration here that we are under red flag warnings from 1 to 11 p.m. today. These wind gusts will be at around 20 to 30 miles per hour. A bit more severe for central Washington, more marginal for eastern Washington. But realize that since everything is bone dry right now, the fire danger conditions are at critical levels. So make sure to be smart and be safe when it comes to fire for today. And hopefully this will be our last red flag warning of the season. I'm meteorologist Thomas Patrick. Thank you very much for joining us on this extended KREM 2 Plus Weather Impact Alert live stream. You can always follow me on social media and catch me every single morning on Up with KREM from 5 to 9 a.m. Again, have a smart and safe day, everyone, and I will see you later.